It is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to a conversation with a group of remarkable scholars and practitioners who are joining us from Afghanistan and from the United States to celebrate the launch of this collection of essays. As a longtime student of Afghanistan, it is my personal joy to recognize the groundbreaking work of Professor Hassan Kakar and to pay tribute to the moral courage of a scholar whose willingness to speak truth to power meant he was sent to prison. And it makes that, nothing short of remarkable then that a few years later, he set aside the pain and bitterness of that experience in order to advise the very government that had jailed him on how to save itself from collapse. It's also worth noting how unusual it is for men of power, let alone heads of state, to turn to others for counsel to seek lessons from the culture and history of people in order to make better decisions for their future. That is, in effect, what President Najibullah did. Decades later, a group of scholars and practitioners led by Professor Javanshir Rasik came together from I hope you can hear me, came together from across the world to see what lessons we could learn from this exchange between a professor and a president. For me, Dr. Kakar's letter offered a set of grave warnings and critiques, but also several rays of hope for the current moment. He acknowledged the disproportionate impact of international agendas and actions on the inner political life of Afghanistan, but he also urged the country's leaders to conceive politics in accommodationist, expansion, and in terms. As American troops withdraw from Afghanistan, the scene could not be more different in many ways. I'm just going to drop my video in case it's my internet that's a problem. As American troops withdraw from Afghanistan, this scene could not be more different in several ways that we will discuss today. But the tensions between intervention and self-determination, between dependence and sovereignty, struggle and reconciliation all persist. So we are fortunate to have this opportunity to think through these tensions with a blessed opening from Ambassador Brahimi, no less. So let me now introduce our panel in the order they will speak. Professor Omar Sadr is joining us from Kabul, assistant professor at American University of Afghanistan. Previously, he worked at the American Institute for Strategic Studies and at the National Center for Policy Research at Kabul University. He earned a doctorate from South Asian University, and we're delighted to have him with us. Robert Cruz is a professor of history at Stanford University, whose research and teaching interests focus on Afghanistan, Central and South Asia, Russia, Islam, and global history. A graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and Columbia University, he earned his PhD at Princeton. He is currently editor-in-chief of the journal Afghanistan, which is published by the American Institute of Afghan Studies and Edinburgh University Press. Belkis Ahmadi is peace builder and human rights advocate with more than 2 decades of experience promoting the rule of law, human rights, gender equality, and good governance. She is currently with the United States Institute of Peace as a senior program officer, where she works on peace building and rule of law in Afghanistan. And finally, Omar Sharifi is assistant professor of anthropology at the American University of Afghanistan and the senior research fellow and Kabul director of the American Institute of Afghan Studies. A graduate of Columbia University, he earned his PhD at Boston University in cultural anthropology.